Good morning, dear class 9 students. Dear students, let us today finish the third chapter, that is Jainism and Buddhism. In the last video, we had discussed, or we had just started about the impact of Buddhism, and there we have discussed up to the political impact. Today we will talk about the cultural impact. So, Buddhism spread far and wide in Southeast Asia. So, Buddhism not only remained or spread within the Indian subcontinent, but also this religion was spread even outside the country, outside India, that is, it reached to China, Sri Lanka, Japan and so on, and it has a great impact in the social, cultural and political background in these Southeast Asian countries. So it had a far-reaching cultural impact in raising the prestige of India. There emerged close cultural contact between these countries and India. Buddhism acted as a vital force between different cultures. So Buddhism played a very important role to spread the Indian culture to the outside or to the Southeast Asian countries. So there we could see the exchange of the culture in these countries. Now, language and literatures. Buddhism made valuable contribution in the field of language and literatures. So even Buddhism religion also had worked a lot in the field of developing many literatures, and then as a vast and varied mixture of literature was produced in the language of masses in Pali. So Buddhist religion monks, they basically produced or developed the literatures in the language of the people. Masses mean people, and that is Pali. Pali language was the most common language spoken by the people at that time. So Buddhist scholars, they wrote all the literatures in Pali language. The Tripitakas, the Jatakas are the most important literary works of the Buddhists. So these two literary works were very well known, and they had a great role in the life of Buddhist people. Beside these, other literary works of importance were written in Pali language are Mahavamsa, Dipavamsa, Divya Vandana, and Laliti Vistara, Saundra Nanda, and Buddha Charitra are the significant work of Buddhist literatures written in Sanskrit. So some literatures were written even in Sanskrit language, that is, these all books are written in Sanskrit language. Now, art and architectures. Buddhism made huge contribution to the evolution means in the development of art and architecture, like stupas, chaityas, viharas and rock-cut caves, temples were their unique contribution. So the Buddhist they also contributed a lot for making so many unique the architectures in the form of stupas, chaityas, viharas, rocks and so on. And there are so many the stupas like Asoka stupa and the rock cut, that is we are the very best example of Ajanta Ellora cave that is a single rock cut, and we could see that inside the rock there are the pictures of Gautam Buddha and his fully life story is mentioned. The stupas is a semi-spherical solid dome-like structure contain the relic of Buddha like hair, teeth or bones. So wherever Buddha stupas are made, there we could see the Buddha's body parts like hair, teeth or bones are kept in memory of him. The stupas at Sanchi, Bharat and Amravati are remarkable specimen of arts surviving up to these days. The chaityas were rectangular halls with a semi-circular roof supported by a number of columns. These halls were meant for worship. So chaityas were actually the central part of a temple, and the central part of the temple is meant for the worship place. The viharas were the monasteries for the monk to live in, and viharas actually were the living place of the monks. Later, when stupas of Buddha began to be curved after the Christian era, there emerged several schools of art and architectures, even during modern time, especially during the time of Asoka. Stone cutting and chiseling of pillars required high technical skills. So let us continue with the another topic in the next video, that is decline of Buddhism. Dear class 9 students, let us continue the chapter with the decline of Buddhism. So here we will basically talk about that how Buddhist religion declined or got ended. First one here, let us talk about the first reason, that is split in Buddhism. Split means division. In Buddhism also had a great negative impact in the spread or in the development of the Buddhist religion in whole through the world. The division of the Buddhism into Hinayana and Mahayana sect brought about many changes in Buddhism. So these two groups brought a lot of changes in their way of teaching, in their way of we'd call the writing, the literatures and then the documents. Its popularity and prestige suffered, and due to these two groups, Buddhism religion had suffered a lot in the area of popularity. Differences had begun to suffer right from the Second Buddhist Council, and we could see the differences, that means in the differences of teaching, differences of ideas, in differences of writing literatures or the documents, we could clearly see in the Second Buddhist Council. Hinayana and Mahayana actually were only two major sects. They were actually two major groups, but slowly in the 16th century we could see many more groups were formed in this religion. Number 2, language. Buddha preached his teaching in Pali, that is the language of the people. After his death, Sanskrit, the language of upper class, also came to be adopted. So later on, after the death of Gautam Buddha, Sanskrit language was also adopted for preaching the teaching and ideas of Gautam Buddha, and for the common people often it was difficult to understand the Sanskrit language and to get the teaching of Gautam Buddha, to understand the teaching of Gautam Buddha. Now number 3, corruption in Sangha. The monks and nuns started living a luxurious life, and according to the Buddhist law, the monks and bhikshus and bhikshunis who are called nuns, monks and nuns, They were prohibited to not to live a luxurious life. They're supposed to live a simple, ascetic life. But we could see later on they started living a luxurious life. They used to have all the comforts, all the enjoyment, and there was a deteriorations in their spiritual life. And that's why, since they started living a luxurious life, their spiritual life was very badly affected. So their spiritual life slowly became worse. They did not proper give attention to the spiritual life, and some of them are completely, they left prayers, meditation and so on. So this is basically, we are talking about the bhikshus and bhikshunis, Buddhist monks and nuns, who also started the life of luxury, comforts, all sorts of facilities they also had. Now Buddhist sanghas received patronage of royalty and became very rich. So Buddhist sanghas or the organizations also received lot of donations from the royal families or the kings, and that's why these sanghas became very rich. The monks and nuns, the richest for their personal benefit, they began to have a worldly life. Therefore, the religious decline was not a surprise. So all the monks and nuns, they started living a, would call a comfort and worldly life. That's why we could see there's a no spiritual life in their life, and then the religious life was completely gone. Now we have fourth number, reforms in the Hinduism. Reforms movement in the Hinduism started with a full vigor once to the appeal of new religion vanished. Hinduism assimilated the positive aspects of Buddhism. Even foreign invaders and settlers adopted Hinduism as their new religion. Among these are included the Shakas and Satavahanas. Now number 5, invasions, attack, external attack. From the 8th century AD, the Turkish invasions dealt in a blow to Buddhism. So now the entry of outside enemies started during the time of this religion, and the monasteries which had accumulated great wealth were looted. So these all Turkish attackers, they attacked to India and they looted so many properties, wealths from the monasteries which were kept by the monks. The invaders plundered the monasteries of Nalanda and Takshila. Plunder means destroyed the monasteries of Nalanda and Takshila, and forced some of the monks to flee to neighboring countries like Nepal and Tibet. And due to the attack of this outsider, many monks and nuns, they were forced to run away from the country, and many of them, they took shelter in Nepal and Tibet. Now number 6, end of royal patronage. Rajput rulers were warlike and could not follow the policy of ahimsa. So Rajput rulers, they had a war type of nature. They liked to fight, and they could not follow the policy of ahimsa anymore. Besides, the kings of the Gupta periods patronized temple in honor of Hindu gods and goddesses, and in these Buddhist temples and so on. Now the Gupta rulers, they started keeping the Hindu gods. Thus, the lack of royal patronage brought about the decline of Buddhism. That's why the royal patronage, the royal support was stopped, and the donations were not given. Royal support was no more, and nothing sorts of help was given to these all organizations, Buddhist organizations. Now Jainism and Buddhism compared similarities between Jainism and Buddhism. A founder of both religions, Mahavira and Gautam Buddha, had similar background. Both of them had a similar background. Both of them belonged to the Kshatriya clan. That means the Kshatriya dynasty, and followed the same path. B. Both sought to attainment of salvation from the cycle of rebirth and death, and both talked about the salvation, that is, we could call the moksha. Number C. Both did not accept the Vedas, and both they rejected the Vedas teachings. The non-violence was their creed, and both of them they talked about the establishment of non-violence in the world. Number E. Monks and nuns of Buddhism and Jainism had to renounce family life. That means monks and nuns of both the religions, they have to leave their family and the world. They had to lead a life of chastity. They have to live a life of chastity, means the purity. So they don't have to do any type of sin, no, not having any type of corruption attitude. So this way we could see both the religious monks had to have these all would call the similarities. So dear students, this way we completed the third chapter, and if you at all have not understood any places in this chapter, you can give me a clearance or the questions in the WhatsApp number, and I will give you the answer of it. Thank you.